When my own daughter looked me straight in the eye and said, "Go find somewhere else to waste away, you're no good to us anymore," I packed my belongings like the obedient mother I had always been. 3 days later, I found myself in the office of an attorney, uncovering that the man I'd trusted for nearly half a century had orchestrated a plan more cunning than any chess match. And my daughter, Clara, was about to realize that sometimes the piece everyone underestimates becomes the one that wins the game. If you're listening right now, make sure to subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because the story I'm about to tell you is one of betrayal, survival, and ultimate revenge. 2 months ago, I was Eleanor Hayes, loyal wife of 43 years, and mother to one breathtakingly ungrateful child. When my husband, Richard, passed suddenly from a heart attack at 71, I thought the ground had fallen out from beneath me. Clara swept in during my grief like a predator disguised in silk, her voice soft but laced with poison. "Mom, you can't possibly manage such a big house all by yourself," she cooed. "The stairs, the bills, the loneliness. It's not healthy for you." I should have noticed the calculation behind her crocodile concern. Clara had always been Richard's golden girl, his flawless princess who could do no wrong. When she married her investment banker husband, Daniel, and gave him grandchildren to spoil, Richard bent over backward for them. And me? I was just the woman who scrubbed, cooked, and kept the family machine running in silence. After the funeral, Clara's pressure mounted. She and Daniel would drop by with glossy brochures for retirement homes, cornering me at the dining table. "Mom, these communities are wonderful. Friends your age, fun activities, no burdens," she insisted. What she really meant was no messy inheritance to share, no mother lingering in the way. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I had been staying in what Clara now called our house for 6 weeks since Richard's death, still unable to step foot in our bedroom without shuddering. Clara arrived unannounced, Daniel trailing behind her with 2 oversized suitcases. "Mom, we've made a decision," she announced. "Daniel's promotion means we need to move closer to the city. This house is ideal for us." I blinked at her, not processing. "Move in? But this is my home." For the first time, Clara's mask cracked, and I saw the ice behind her eyes. "Actually, Mom, according to Dad's will, everything was left to me. The house, the accounts, everything. I've only let you stay here out of kindness, but it's time you found somewhere else." The words struck like a blade. "Clara, that can't be right. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," she said smoothly. "Dad trusted me to protect what he built. You wouldn't know what to do with investments or property. You were just the wife. Just the wife." 43 years of devotion reduced to 3 words that tasted like ash. And then, she delivered the fatal strike. "Go find somewhere else to die. You're useless now." I stuffed 4 decades of marriage into 2 suitcases and a shoebox of photos. Clara watched from the doorway, checking her watch as if I were inconveniencing her schedule. "There's a decent senior complex on Willow Street," she suggested, her tone like someone recommending a coffee shop. "Affordable too. I'm sure they'll take you." Affordable. She was inheriting millions, and she thought I belonged in a cut-rate institution. Daniel tossed my luggage into their sleek BMW like he was disposing of trash. "Eleanor, you'll enjoy being independent again," he muttered without meeting my eyes. Independent, meaning abandoned. As the car pulled away, I stared at the house in the rearview mirror. My house. Richard's house. Clara's house now. I had poured 4 decades into those walls, Clara's birthday parties, Richard's recoveries, every corner kept alive through my care. Now I was being dumped at a shabby motel like an overstaying guest. The Crestwood Inn was the kind of place where $50 a night bought you peeling wallpaper, towels thin as paper, and carpets older than me. Clara pressed $200 into my hand as if tipping a waitress. "This should hold you over for a few days. Once Daniel finishes sorting Dad's papers, we'll transfer a little to your account. A little, from my own inheritance." After they left, I sat on the sagging mattress, staring at the peeling ceiling. In the span of 3 hours, I had gone from grieving widow to discarded mother. Clara, the child I raised, the one I sacrificed for, had tossed me away like spoiled leftovers. But as the despair settled, something tugged at me. Richard had been meticulous with his affairs, obsessively careful with legal documents. He had shown me his will years ago, explaining every detail. And I was certain this wasn't what he had written. Richard was many things: traditional, stubborn, dismissive about money, but cruel? Never. This was the man who held me through my mother's passing, who never forgot an anniversary, who filled our home with flowers just because. He would not have left me destitute. The next morning, I scraped together bus fare and rode 20 minutes downtown to see Richard's attorney, Edward Franklin, the same man who had helped us buy our house decades ago. Edward was a dignified man in his 70s, with eyes that seemed to see more than you said. His secretary announced me, and he looked up in genuine surprise. "Eleanor, my dear, I've been trying to reach you. I called the house several times, but Clara said you were away." Away? That's the lie my daughter had fed him. "Mr. Franklin, I need to know what Richard's will actually says." He frowned. "Of course. Didn't Clara provide you with your copy?" I gave her the original and several certified duplicates after the reading. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. There was a reading? Yes, Eleanor. You were meant to be present. Clara told me you were too distraught and that she would handle everything, ensuring you received your inheritance. My body went cold. "Mr. Franklin. Clara told me I inherited nothing. She said it all went to her." Edward's expression hardened into disbelief, then fury. He pulled a thick file from his drawer, his movements suddenly urgent. "That's impossible. Richard's will was very clear." He opened the document, and I immediately recognized Richard's neat signature. My pulse thundered as Edward began reading aloud. "I, Richard Thomas Hayes, being of sound mind, do hereby leave to my beloved wife, Eleanor Marie Hayes, our primary residence at 429 Linden Avenue, with all furnishings and belongings therein. Furthermore, I grant her 70% of all financial assets, accounts, and investments, totaling approximately $23 million. My heart jolted. $23 million. The house. 70% of everything. Edward continued, his voice heavy. "To my daughter, Clara Hayes Wilson, I leave $10 million, to be held in trust until her 45th birthday, contingent upon her respectful and supportive treatment of her mother after my passing." Contingent upon her treatment of me. Richard had known. He had seen Clara's entitlement. He had anticipated her cruelty. I whispered, "Clara told me I was left with nothing. She forced me out. She gave me $200 and told me to move into a senior home." Edward's face flushed with anger. "Eleanor, what your daughter has done is fraud, elder abuse of the worst kind. She lied, forged documents most likely, and tricked you out of your rightful inheritance. But her greed has undone her. Because of her actions, she has violated the trust clause. That $10 million now reverts to you." My hands shook. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying you now inherit everything. Not $23 million, Eleanor. $33 million. Plus the house. Plus all personal property. Your daughter has cost herself everything." The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Clara's hunger for power had triggered the very safeguard Richard had put in place to shield me from her greed. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice trembling just slightly. Edward Franklin leaned back, his kind eyes softening for the first time since Richard's funeral. "Now, Eleanor, we involve the authorities. We report the fraud, and then we inform Clara that the life she thought she was stepping into is about to collapse beneath her. Can she fight this?" I asked. He smiled thinly. "With what money?" Every account she thinks she owns is frozen. Every investment, every property transfer, every asset, locked. From this moment forward, nothing is hers. I pictured Clara wandering through my house, already imagining renovations, buying furniture with funds she thought belonged to her. I imagined Daniel recalculating his portfolio, smugly adjusting to their new life. Neither of them had the faintest clue that within hours, their entire scheme would unravel. Edward's office transformed into the command center of what he jokingly dubbed Operation Justice. He called the banks, alerted the police, even brought in a private investigator. I sat silently in his leather chair, my mind struggling to catch up to the enormity of Clara's betrayal. Detective Ramirez arrived to examine the forged will Clara had shoved in my face. "These aren't amateur fakes," she muttered. "This took planning, access, and the right contacts. She didn't do this alone." "You think Daniel was involved?" I asked. The detective nodded. "Most likely. Financial forgeries like this usually require someone with inside knowledge. We'll be pulling his records next." Within hours, every one of Clara's new accounts was frozen. Her shiny new credit cards, tied to what she believed was her inheritance, declined one after another. Even the utilities she'd prematurely switched into her name were suspended pending ownership confirmation. At 3:47 p.m. exactly, my phone rang. Clara's name lit the screen. "Mom, where are you? The banks are saying Dad's accounts are locked." "What's going on?" I let her squirm. "Hello, Clara. I'm sitting in Edward Franklin's office. Remember him? Your father's attorney, the one who read the actual will while you lied and told him I was traveling." Silence. Then her voice, tight with anger. "Mom, I don't know what you think you've uncovered." "I uncovered the truth, Clara. You're a liar and a thief. And I discovered your father was much wiser than you ever gave him credit for. You don't understand. I was protecting you from the burden of managing all that money. You've never handled investments." "No, Clara. I understand perfectly. You forged legal documents. You committed fraud. And you threw your 67-year-old mother onto the street because you assumed I was too weak to fight back." Her tone shifted, sharper, desperate. "Mom, you're confused. Grief makes people irrational. Someone's taking advantage of you." Even caught red-handed, she still tried to manipulate me. The audacity was staggering. "Let me be crystal clear, Clara. Not only did you never inherit what you thought you did, but the $10 million your father left for you is mine as well now. His trust clause saw to that." Her voice cracked. "That's impossible. Detective Ramirez is sitting right here if you'd like to argue about impossibilities while facing felony charges." The line went quiet. I could almost hear her mind racing, scrambling for an angle. "Mom, please, let's meet in person. We can talk this through." "Oh, we'll be meeting, Clara. At the courthouse, when you're arraigned. You wouldn't dare prosecute your own daughter." Something cold solidified in my chest. "Watch me." I hung up, meeting Edward's approving gaze. "How long before she's arrested?" "Detective Ramirez already has enough for a warrant. They'll take her tonight. Daniel's records are being subpoenaed as we speak. If he helped, he'll be charged too." Minutes later, Clara's text arrived. "Mom, please don't do this. Think about the kids." I showed it to the detective, who gave a dry smile. Classic manipulation tactic. Emotional blackmail. I typed back, "I am thinking of them. They deserve to see the cost of greed." 20 minutes later, my phone lit up again. This time, Daniel. "Eleanor, surely we can settle this quietly. Clara may have made mistakes, but dragging the police into this seems excessive." "Daniel, did you help forge those papers?" Silence. Then, you need to understand, the pressure Clara was under, she only wanted to protect you. You've never had to manage large finances. So that's a yes. It wasn't malicious. She thought it best. By throwing me out of my house and telling me to die elsewhere? Daniel had no answer. Here's what's going to happen, I told him, my voice steel. You're both going to be arrested. You'll face federal charges. And I'll be sitting in my house, watching it unfold. Eleanor, be reasonable. I was reasonable for 43 years. Look where it got me. That night, at 8:30 p.m., police entered a luxury restaurant where Clara was dining with Daniel and friends, celebrating their supposed fortune. According to Detective Ramirez, she screamed about false arrest, demanding her lawyer, who turned out to be Daniel's golf partner, with zero criminal law experience. Daniel was taken the next morning at his office. Forensic accountants had already linked the forged documents to a print company his firm used for shady investment reports. My son-in-law had skeletons in his closet Clara either didn't know about or chose to ignore. That night, I slept in the master bedroom of my home for the first time in weeks. Clara had already shoved her clothes and perfume into the space, disrupting Richard's careful order with her chaos. I bagged her belongings and left them on the porch. Let her collect them after bail. The house felt new to me. Not because Richard was gone, but because, for the first time, I saw it as mine. All those years, it had been shaped to his vision. But now, I could finally breathe in it as my own. Edward called with updates the next day. Clara's bail is set at $50,000. With frozen accounts, she'll have to beg for help. Daniel's is $200,000, the judge didn't like his record. Did you know he was already under investigation for securities fraud? Of course I hadn't. I'd always been excluded from their money talk, spoken down to like a child when finances came up. But now? They were about to learn exactly how much I understood. Edward, I want to change the house. Clara had contractors lined up. I'll keep them, but with my own vision. He chuckled. Do it, Eleanor. It's your home now. And I realized what made me happiest wasn't the money. It was the thought of undoing every smug plan Clara had made. She wanted a wine cellar? I'd build a library. She wanted Robert's study gone? I'd turn it into an art studio. My phone rang again. Unknown number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Janet Cooper with Channel 7 News. We've learned you were the victim of a major elder fraud case involving your daughter. Would you be willing to share your story? Word was spreading fast. In a city like this, the arrest of a high-profile banker and his wife for defrauding his own mother-in-law was newsworthy. Miss Cooper, I said carefully, thank you for reaching out. But I'm not ready to go public. Not yet. I knew Janet Cooper had a point. How many women like me were quietly being deceived, bullied, or robbed by the very children they'd spent their lives raising? How many widows were being cast aside as burdens just so their children could get their hands on an inheritance? If I tell my story, I asked her, would I control how it's presented? Absolutely, she said. We could arrange a recorded interview. You'd approve the final edit before it airs. I thought about Clara, probably sitting in a holding cell at that very moment, still convincing herself she could charm her way out of this. Let me think about it, I told the reporter. I may have quite a story to tell. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of the expensive wine Daniel had once sent as a Christmas gift. Now I was drinking it in my house, bought with my inheritance, while deciding whether to humiliate my daughter on television. Life had taken a sharp, almost surreal turn. At exactly 7 a.m. the next morning, the doorbell rang. When I looked through the window, my breath caught. Clara stood on the porch, still in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Somehow, she'd made bail. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Mom, please. We need to talk. We already did, I said coolly. You told me to go find somewhere else to die. Instead, I found a way to live. Her eyes were rimmed red, her polished composure broken for the first time in her life. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I'm still your daughter. Are you? I asked, my voice steady. Because daughters don't forge wills and steal from their mothers. I wasn't stealing, she faltered, realizing there was no word that didn't make her sound like a criminal. You were what, Clara? I was trying to protect you. You've never managed this kind of money. Even standing accused, she still painted herself as the savior. The arrogance was breathtaking. Let me tell you something your father confided in me 6 months before he died, I said. He told me he was worried about your sense of entitlement, your obsession with money, and the way you dismissed people you thought were beneath you. Her face drained of color. That's not true. Dad never said that. He compared you to his sister Lydia. Beautiful, charming, and completely incapable of thinking about anyone but yourself. He said he was changing the will because he feared what you might do to me if you controlled everything. That's a lie. I pulled out my phone. Actually, it's not. Richard left a recording, to be played if you ever challenged the will or mistreated me. Clara stared at the phone like it was a loaded weapon. Play it, she whispered. I tapped the screen, and Richard's voice filled the quiet morning, calm but devastating. If you're hearing this, Clara, it means my fears were justified. I prayed I was wrong. I hoped you had more integrity than I suspected. But if your mother is showing you this, it means you proved me right in the worst way. Clara crumbled onto the porch steps as his words cut into her. I watched your mother sacrifice her dreams, her ambitions, her independence, to keep this family whole. She worked part-time to pay your tuition. She gave up her education, her career, so you could thrive. And if you've treated her with cruelty after my death, then you've lost everything I left you. By the time the recording ended, Clara was sobbing, not her usual delicate tears, but broken, ragged crying. He hated me, she whispered. No, I said softly. He loved you enough to hope you'd prove him wrong. But you chose to prove him right. She lifted her mascara-streaked face. What happens now? Now? I said. Now you face the consequences. The fraud charges, the investigation, the news coverage. Channel 7 already wants to interview me about elder financial abuse. I'm thinking of saying yes. Her face crumpled further. Mom, please, think about the kids. Think about Daniel's career. Think about our family. I am thinking about them. And I'm thinking about how you didn't consider any of that when you decided to commit felonies. She stood, shoulders sagging, looking years older. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted the money. I wanted security. I wanted status. I never wanted to worry again. For the first time, she told the truth. I believe you, I said quietly. But wanting something doesn't excuse destroying people to get it. What can I do to fix this? Start by admitting it was wrong. Not complicated, not protective, wrong. Completely, unforgivably wrong. Then face the consequences like an adult, instead of trying to manipulate your way out. Clara stared at me as though she were seeing me clearly for the first time, not the submissive mother she'd always known, but the woman who had outplayed her completely. I deserve this, don't I? Yes, Clara, I said firmly. You do. 3 days later, another knock came at my door. This time it was Daniel's mother, Vivian Hayes. She was exactly as I imagined, hair salon perfect, dripping in diamonds, radiating the arrogance of old money. Eleanor, we need to discuss this matter rationally. I let her in, curious to hear what fantasy she'd spun to excuse her son's crimes. Vivian settled into my living room like royalty deigning to meet a peasant. Daniel may have made some poor decisions, but pursuing charges against him seems unnecessarily vindictive, don't you agree? I laughed, sharp and bitter. Vindictive? He helped forge documents that stole everything from me and threw me out of my home. He was following Clara's lead. He didn't understand the situation fully. So now, the blame shifted to my daughter. The audacity ran deep in that family. Your son created fraudulent documents. That's not following. That's conspiracy. Vivian's expression smoothed into practiced calm. His attorneys believe we can reach a settlement. You get your house back, Clara pays her price, and Daniel avoids the shame of a trial. And what exactly does this settlement look like? We're prepared to offer you $2 million in exchange for dropping charges against Daniel. I nearly laughed. $2 million for a crime that attempted to steal $33 million? Your son tried to ruin me, and you think $2 million erases that? Eleanor, be realistic. Daniel has children, a reputation, a career. Sending him to prison helps no one. It helps justice. Her polished mask slipped. Justice? You're destroying two families over money you wouldn't even know how to manage. There it was, the same poisonous condescension that Clara had inherited. In their eyes, I was just the servant who'd forgotten her place. I think we're done here, I said coldly. She stood, her eyes narrowing. $5 million. Final offer. The number was staggering, but principle wasn't for sale. My answer is no. Vivian straightened, her composure hardening. Very well. But you should know our legal team has uncovered some questionable details about Richard's business history. If those were to come out at trial, it could complicate things for you. Her meaning was clear. A threat. I didn't flinch. What kind of details? She smiled faintly. The kind that might shift the narrative about who the real criminal was. After she left, I called Edward at once. Whatever they think they have, it doesn't change Clara and Daniel's crimes, he reassured me. But could it affect the case? He hesitated. If they dig up enough dirt, they could cloud Richard's reputation and sway a jury. I sat quietly, thinking of Richard, of our life, of all the things he never told me. Edward, I said finally, I want to know everything about Richard's business. Every deal, every partnership, every skeleton. No secrets. Not anymore. He sighed. Are you sure, Eleanor? Some truths are easier left buried. I'm sure, I said. I want to know it all. The Hayes family thought they could smear Richard's memory to shield their criminal son. But before anyone else twisted his legacy, I needed to know the truth myself. That night, I sat alone in Richard's study, my study now, pulling open drawers, flipping through files, combing through years of meticulous records. Every binder was dated, every folder neatly labeled. Yet buried beneath the order, I began finding cracks. Transfers to shell companies. Consulting contracts with no services attached. Payments to firms that barely seemed to exist outside of paper. By midnight, my world shattered. Edward's recommended investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Carol Chin, joined me the next morning. She specialized in unraveling financial crimes and spent hours in the study, photographing evidence, connecting dots. When she finally looked up, her face was grim. Mrs. Hayes, I'm afraid your husband was laundering money. Millions. He used his firm as a front for criminal enterprises. The words struck like a hammer. That's impossible. Richard was the most principled man I knew. Carol shook her head softly. I'm sorry, but the evidence is overwhelming. Fake invoices. Phantom consulting contracts. Money flows matching known syndicate activity. This went on for at least 12 years, probably longer. 12 years. While I hosted dinner parties and sat smiling at charity galas, my husband was funneling dirty money through his empire. There's something else, Carol added. The 10 million Richard left Clara? It came directly from those laundered funds. If the FBI finds out, they'll seize everything, the house, the accounts, the lot. The room spun. Everything I thought I'd gained, gone. Unless what? I asked. Carol hesitated. Unless Clara and Daniel's lawyers already know and plan to use it. If they tip off the FBI first, they might bargain for immunity in exchange for cooperation. Of course. That explained Vivian Hayes's smugness. They'd known about Richard's crimes and had been dangling them over my head like a guillotine. How did they even discover this? I asked. Daniel's a banker. He would have recognized the patterns instantly. My phone buzzed. Clara. Mom, we need to meet. There are things about Dad you need to hear. I already know, I said flatly. A pause. Know what? I know about the laundering. The fake contracts. The dirty money. Everything. Her voice tightened. Then you understand why we need to renegotiate. Kevin's lawyers are already in touch with the FBI. He's prepared to give them Dad's entire operation in exchange for immunity. You keep the house, plus $5 million in clean assets. The rest goes to the government. And you? Our charges vanish. We all walk away. It was ingenious in its cruelty, flipping my husband's sins into their salvation. So you're asking me to help you exploit your father's crimes while escaping punishment for your own? I'm asking you to be practical. The alternative is losing everything and facing charges yourself. I looked around Richard's study, finally seeing it for what it was, not a sanctuary, but the theater of his double life. Every chair, every painting, every book, purchased with blood money. And in my daughter's eyes, deceit wasn't a disgrace, it was an inheritance. I need time, I told her. You don't have it. The FBI meets tomorrow. Kevin's lawyer needs your answer tonight. When she hung up, I sat in the dark, surrounded by ghosts of lies. 43 years with a stranger. A daughter who'd inherited his cunning. But Clara had overlooked one thing, she wasn't the only one capable of playing the long game. I called Carol. Get me a meeting with the FBI. Tonight. Hours later, I sat in Edward's conference room across from Agent Sarah Martinez, sharp eyes, no nonsense, her presence radiating authority. She pressed record and said, Mrs. Hayes, do you understand that by coming forward, you may be admitting to benefiting from criminal proceeds? I understand, I said evenly. But I'd rather tell you the truth than let my daughter weaponize it against me. I laid out everything. Richard's laundering, Clara's forged will, Daniel's forgeries, Vivian's attempted extortion. So your daughter believes she can trade knowledge of her father's crimes for immunity? Exactly. And she thinks I'll go along because I'm afraid of losing everything. For the first time, Agent Martinez's lips curved into a smile. Are you afraid, Mrs. Hayes? 2 weeks ago I was sleeping in a motel, abandoned. Today I'm confessing to federal agents about my late husband's empire of lies. Fear isn't what drives me anymore. Then what does? Anger. Cold, righteous anger. At being underestimated, dismissed, manipulated. Her smile widened. Mrs. Hayes, would you be willing to wear a wire? 3 hours later, I sat in my living room, a wire taped beneath my blouse, waiting. At 8 p.m. sharp, Clara and Daniel arrived, dressed like they were heading to a corporate dinner. Daniel carried a leather briefcase, no doubt stuffed with agreements. Mom, you look radiant, Clara said, kissing my cheek as if nothing had happened. Clarity has that effect, I replied. Daniel snapped open the briefcase. Mrs. Hayes, this deal favors you. You keep the house, 5 million in clean funds, and full immunity. Clean funds, I repeated slowly. Interesting choice of words. Clara shot him a warning glance. Mom, the point is we're all safe. The past stays buried. And the 33 million Richard actually left me? Tainted, Clara said firmly. It can't be separated from the laundering. 5 million is the best you'll get. I leaned back. And what do you two gain? Daniel smiled, confidence returning. Victoria's charges vanish, my name stays untarnished, and our family moves forward. Misunderstanding, he called it. Felony fraud, forgery, extortion, reduced to a misunderstanding. I tilted my head. Tell me, Daniel. When did you discover Richard's laundering? Before you married Clara? Or only when you decided to steal from me? They exchanged a quick glance. Eleanor, Daniel said carefully, that's irrelevant. On the contrary. If you knew and kept silent, you're an accomplice. If you only uncovered it while committing fraud, you're remarkably unlucky. Clara's composure began to fracture. And that was exactly what the FBI had been waiting for. Mom, what are you getting at? Clara's voice was tight, her composure cracking. I'm getting at the fact that you two didn't stumble into this. The forged will, the convenient discovery of Richard's accounts, even Daniel's ties to shady document fixers, this was planned. Not days, not weeks, but months. Maybe years. Daniel scoffed. That's absurd. Is it? I asked, my voice steady. Because Agent Martinez seems to find it very plausible. Their faces drained of color. Daniel whispered the name like a curse. Agent Martinez? Yes, I said, leaning back. The FBI. She's very interested in hearing how my daughter and her husband tried to blackmail me with my late husband's alleged crimes. Daniel lurched to his feet, grabbing for his briefcase. This conversation is over. On the contrary, I said coldly, it's just beginning. At that moment, Agent Martinez stepped into the room, flanked by 2 federal agents. Daniel froze mid-motion as his briefcase and both of their phones were swiftly confiscated. Clara Hayes Wilson and Daniel Wilson, Agent Martinez announced, her voice sharp and final, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and attempted extortion of a federal witness. Clara turned to me, eyes wide with betrayal. Mom, how could you do this to your own family? The same way you forged documents and stole from me, sweetheart, except my way is legal. As the cuffs clicked into place, Daniel tried one last desperate angle. Eleanor, you don't understand. Richard's business ties, there are people who won't like this kind of attention. You've put yourself in real danger. Agent Martinez's eyes narrowed. Mr. Wilson, was that a threat against a federal witness? No. I'm warning her about reality. The reality, she said coldly, is that you just added witness intimidation to your charges. After they were taken away, Agent Martinez sat back down across from me. Mrs. Hayes, as much as I dislike his tactics, Daniel wasn't entirely wrong. Your husband did work with dangerous organizations. I swallowed. How dangerous? The Torino crime family. Your husband's firm was one of their laundering pipelines. But here's the part no one expected, she slid a thick file toward me. Your husband wasn't just laundering. He was an informant. For 12 years, Richard was undercover for the FBI. While appearing to facilitate their operations, he was feeding us intel that led to dozens of arrests. The floor seemed to tilt. You're saying Richard worked for you? That all of this was part of a sanctioned investigation, she confirmed. He was paid a cut of the funds to maintain his cover. What he left you is legally yours. It's clean. It's earned. Tears pricked my eyes. 43 years, and I never knew. Why didn't anyone tell me? The case was classified. Even many FBI offices weren't briefed. Your daughter's scheme, ironically, helped us confirm your innocence. The irony cut deep. Clara had tried to strip me of everything, twice. And both times, her greed had secured my victory. So what happens now? I asked. Now you get your inheritance back. Clara and Daniel face federal charges. And you get to decide what you'll do with the rest of your life. For the first time in weeks, I breathed without fear. 6 months later, I stood in the bright, renovated kitchen of my home, brewing coffee for two. Sunlight streamed across brand new countertops I had chosen. "Good morning, Eleanor," said Dr. Sarah Chin, Carol's sister and now my financial advisor. She carried a leather folder thick with reports. "Morning, Sarah. Ready for our quarterly review?" The past half year had been a whirlwind. Court appearances, media attention, and transformation. Clara and Daniel were both serving federal sentences of 18 months. Their fall from grace had made me an unlikely advocate for seniors, and my foundation, the Eleanor Hayes Trust for Elder Protection, was already funding legal aid and scholarships. "Your portfolio is thriving," Sarah said. "The foundation is fully operational, and your scholarship program has already selected its first students." I smiled. "And the documentary?" Netflix confirmed production. Filming begins next month. The world now knew my story as The Mother's Revenge, an American crime story. Every cent earned would fund senior advocacy. Sarah's tone grew careful. "Clara has written again. She says she wants forgiveness." 17 letters had come so far. I read the first few, dripping with excuses and self-pity, before I stopped opening them. Some wounds didn't heal with paper apologies. "Has my stance changed, Sarah?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "Not according to our last conversations. But people evolve." I thought about the Eleanor of 6 months ago, broken, dependent, invisible. That woman was gone. "Schedule a meeting with her lawyer," I said finally. "Not to reconcile. To make something clear." "What exactly?" "That forgiveness isn't automatic. That she destroyed our relationship permanently. And that her children will one day learn the truth of why their mother went to prison." Sarah looked startled. "That seems harsh." "Good. It should." We spoke briefly of supervised visits with my grandchildren, but I knew my bond with them would be built on their choices as adults, not on Clara's desperate pleas. The doorbell rang. A delivery, the new furniture for my studio. My favorite renovation. Once Richard's den, it was now a sunlit art space where I'd rediscovered painting, the passion I'd buried when I became nothing but the wife. "Eleanor, may I ask you something personal?" Sarah said before leaving. "Do you regret how this all unfolded? The prison sentences, the headlines, the broken family ties?" I considered her question as I signed for my delivery. 6 months ago, I had been a widow with nothing, no money, no home, no hope. Today, I was a philanthropist, an advocate, a woman with purpose. My daughter tried to leave me penniless. My son-in-law forged my husband's name. They showed me who they were when they thought I was powerless. I don't regret exposing them. They're not family. They're just DNA. Family protects you. They don't prey on you. Sarah nodded. I added softly, "Besides, look at what I became when I stopped letting them define me." After she left, I wandered my home, really mine now. Each room reflected me. In the studio, I pulled the cover off my latest painting, a self-portrait. A woman bathed in sunlight, her face lifted toward the future. The woman on the canvas bore no resemblance to the widow who once cried in a budget motel. She was powerful, independent, Unafraid. Because the greatest revenge isn't vengeance at all. It's becoming everything your enemies swore you could never be. And if Clara ever hoped to stand beside this new woman, she'd need far more than letters. She'd need a transformation as complete as mine. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.